We have the shakeup of the current administration and a lot of things being peeled back. Has that impacted you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we lost millions of dollars this year. This year was really challenging for me, for Gentleman's Factory, for a lot of different Black brands, but it always goes back to the North Star. So I do this because I understand and see the plight of this community that I care so much and so deeply about.
What are some of the key things you think about before deciding to turn the ship? All right, Mr. Jeff Lindor, let's talk about your story. So, from Haiti,
Yeah.
moved to Brooklyn, and tell us a bit more about those beginning days.
Yeah, I mean, I came to America in 1989 and I was 3 years old. So, what I do recall though, as an adult, when I'm speaking to my sisters and my parents, we thought that we were coming to America, and like the scariest thing was going to be us like living in a big house and they're going to leave me home alone. And I'm Macaulay Culkin and I'm fighting these like robbers in this huge mansion because my family left me because they're going to go to Paris or Europe or something like that or whatever. Right. So instead of getting home alone, I got The Wire, right? Like I was raised in the hood. You know what I mean? Like I was raised not in Baltimore, but I was raised in Brooklyn, Coney Island, right? Public housing. So I think America is obviously the land of opportunity, but what was sold to us wasn't necessarily what we got. But yeah, like it was definitely not an easy, journey.
When people achieve a certain level of success, I think it always comes back to growing up and lessons learned and kind of that environment. And so, Tommy, what are some of the early childhood lessons that you've learned that influence some of your decisions today up until this point?
Like I think it was just really helping like just navigating all of these different like hats that I had to wear. Think about it, right? Was raised in public housing and with immigrant parents who is not from this culture. So they now having to learn a new language, having to understand the ideologies of just like America. Me now, though, living and going to public school in the 90s. So, what that taught me was just understanding the various cultures, pleasing my parents because I had to get good grades, the Haitian culture, education, and church, and everything. Like, there was such a high expectation. While, though, still me living in learning how to navigate in the hood, because last thing I wanted to be was a square. The last thing I wanted was to get picked on. Let me paint this for a second. Me going to the Chinese store, right, to go get pork fried rice and chicken wings, right? So my parents are giving me money, right? And back in the days, there was no debit card, there was no electronic, there was no fintech come back in the days, right? It was just straight cash. So my parents telling me to go to the store and I'm like 10, 11, 12. So I have to remember the order, right? Now, as I'm going to the Chinese food store, everybody, that's where the hood hangs out. That's where the community hangs. So I had to go through then, learn to say who to say what's up to and dap them, but learning who to dap up, who to also just give a nod to, and who not to acknowledge, right? You know what I'm saying? While also looking at paying attention to the undercover officers, right? That's like looking at that. And me not trying to get robbed because I have cash on me, and me also remembering the order of for fried rice and chicken wings, right? You know what I'm saying? So literally at the age of like 12, 13, I learned emotional intelligence. I learned situational awareness, right? Like I learned all of these skill sets and those things help me to, navigate corporate America, entrepreneurship, business, etc. Right?
Absolutely. It's like, especially if you go into spaces in the corporate environment or just entrepreneurship, you have to be observant.
Yeah.
And then, but why being observant? You also have to think about the future. Then you also have to execute. And so it's so interesting how you had that just growing up, just walking through the hood, getting some chicken wings, pork fried rice, and then making sure that okay, you make it home safe. Let's talk about your career in corporate spaces, right? So you were in banking, health, and even correctional reform. So what did those experiences teach you about leadership and people?
Yeah, like I really value my banking experience. And then that was like while I was in college and a little bit afterwards. But what I've seen though was I saw the financial health of the community, right? So I was looking at checking accounts and I saw how there were individuals within our community that had very healthy financial, capacity, right? And then I also saw that there were individuals who were living check to check or negative balances, etc. Right. So I think that that job was really important to me coming out of college because I was really able to get the good landscape of where that specific community's, financial health was, right? And then from there, I was surrounded and one of my favorite jobs was in healthcare. And I worked for a company called Emblem Health, but I was like a brand and strategy person, right? So it was so fun because I had a budget, like a sponsorship budget. So everyone knew me as like, hey, like you're having a conversation with Jeff, like you can get a check, right? And that's how I really got the name Mr. Community, right? Because they knew that, hey, this is someone who cares about community, but who also has financial he has a budget for things, right? So that was great. And then I got a master's in public policy. And from there, I worked for the city and I worked at the Department of Correction on the policy side. So I was a part of the leadership team there that was helping to bring the island up to code while also looking at other ways of incarceration outside of just locking Black people up. Right. So that was a really powerful experience. And then all of those things did shape me to form Gentleman's Factory because I looked at it on two sides. I looked at it from a lens of what is the overall state of our community, right? From a financial lens, from a healthcare lens, and also from a public policy lens. And myself as an individual, I then saw that, hey, like as I'm in these like leadership roles or in these corporate spaces, I'm just so isolated because I haven't really seen someone who like I don't see enough people who look like me in these spaces. And then it's like, am I losing my identity in this process? And lastly, what I'll say is that I'm like, wait, like, I'm not like a superhuman Black person, right? Like, I'm not the only one deserving to be in these rooms. So then I then saw, oh, like, how do we bring people together so that we can solve some of the problems within our own communities?
I love that. You touch so many different avenues of just life. And so, do you have any leadership principles? Is it like, hey, we have to do it like this, this? Love to hear your philosophies on just what are leadership principles that you implement within your organizations.
Yeah, one, like, what's the North Star, right? Like, where are we going, right? Because I think that once you focus on like the vision, right? Organizational practices continue to shift, right? It continues to get sharpened. It continues, you see what works and you see what doesn't work. But like, what is the vision? What is the goal? And I'm gonna give you a perfect example. So, General's fact, we have physical locations. Like, so we have a physical space model where Black and brown men can come in and either get a haircut or, you know, like attend an event or work out of this space, right? So, we have a physical space model, but what happens when there is a global pandemic, when you can no longer physically be with each other, right? Does the company stop, right? Or do we pivot? Now going on philosophy, it is looking at, oh, if the business is just about physical spaces, then, oh yeah, you're no longer in business because you can't gather, but our business is community, right? So, and the vision is organizing Black and brown men and ensuring that we have the resources and the network and the social capital and the the financial capital to continue to elevate. So when a global pandemic occurs, we shift our organizational practices, but we don't shut down because our North Star is bringing people together, right? So I think that like from like a foundational piece of leadership, it is like ensuring that your vision is clear and you're looking to obtain that vision regardless of what happens in the world. That's number one. And then number two, like it's surrounding yourself with individuals who share your same core values. It's critical that you surround yourself with individuals that have good ethics, that can support you, and that also are smart and who's even smarter than you. Those are the things that I look for in as a leader. And then lastly, as a leader myself, I want to continue to ensure that I'm healthy, that I'm sharp, and that I'm learning. Those are things that are continuing to just improve on myself. Because if I'm good, then everything that I touch is good. But if I'm not well, then that compromises a lot of things that I'm involved with, right? So just continue to just make sure that you just get better at this and
What I heard is North Star. You know, I think as a leader, you have to have the vision straight
Yep.
because if you're not clear on exactly where you want to go, how can you expect other people to follow? At what point did you have the idea to start the Gentleman's Factory? What happened? What chain of events happened? And how do we get there?
Well, so it was a few things. One, I was again like a brand and strategy manager, so at a large health insurance company, in which I was tasked with helping families get enrolled into health insurance, right? And because I had a budget, I was sponsoring a lot of things, and I had the unique opportunity to really scan New York City, right? And everybody would meet with me because I had a budget. So they knew that, hey, like if you're meeting with Jeff, then some money could get, attached to it. So I remember going into a meeting where, and this was when the Affordable Care Act just was enacted, right? And then we were saying how we wanted to enroll more Black men, right? Black families. And then the question was, hey, like, where do Black men actually go? Where do we go? Right. And also, where can we sponsor that would not get me fired, right? If I were to give an organization 25,000, 50,000, $100,000, right? You know what I mean? Because we deployed a whole bunch of money to communities, right? But anything that was like under $5,000, there wasn't really much questions, right? It was a pilot, it was a test, but over $5,000, then there needed to be clear justification. So as I was literally scanning all of New York City, asking, hey, like, where do Black men go? I really couldn't find like physical spaces that would justify that amount of financial contribution. And so that was like one part of it. Another element of it was I would just do like these events. I would do like these gentlemen brunches and these mixers, really just to get people coming together, and Black men just to kind of just, hey man, like we're just so isolated. And I do remember every year after year, the attendance would just keep growing, and I had this one event, it was in 2016, where we had about like 300 men there, right? And it was just nothing but men. And these are your lawyers, your doctors, your entertainers, your celebrities, right? So all of these things. And a good friend of mine asked me, is this a hobby or is this an enterprise? And then I had to ask myself, yeah, like, actually, what is this? And so many other brothers were just saying, hey, like they're looking to buy a new home or they need insurance or they're having problems with their significant other or hey, like I'm about to be a dad. Right. Like there's just so many things, right? And then they were coming to me or the initiative that I started as an outlet or as a resource. And I'm like, we don't have the capacity for that. When a friend of mine asked me, what is this a hobby or enterprise? And then that's when I really started to ask myself that question. And September 30th, 2016, that was when I resigned from my career in public policy. So really dedicate time and energy and focus into understanding what this could become.
What process did you go through to decide to, you know what, I'm gonna take off and then start this other thing?
Yeah, good question. Well, so when I resigned, like that was when I was at the city.
Okay,
The IGS, okay, the city. Yeah, so it was just a burning like fire of just my why, right? And I also saw the impact that I had at the New York City Department of Correction, like on the policy side, like we've done a lot of monumental things. And then afterwards, it was like, hey, like I want, I saw so much in that agency and just how politics and policy is formed and all of those things. And that's where I was like, wait, like there's more to this. And quite frankly, I don't think I could have gotten a job that would have gave me that much of a dopamine rush, right? Because Rikers Island at that time, and I'm not too sure how it is now. Like I haven't been following in detail as I was before. Before I literally knew everything that was happening on the island. And I had like unlimited access, right? Like I didn't need like a officer escort. I like had full reign. When I saw just the opportunity that I could really fully discover what a like enterprise of Black and brown men could look like, I had to seize on that opportunity. And then the way that I actually did it was shout out to the community that I've cultivated. Because prior to me resigning, I went to a group of close friends and I asked them, hey, if I run into a financial hardship, would you back me? And if I run into an opportunity, would you back me? At the time, I was married at the time, and I have 2 children, so it was a community that supported me financially so that I could just figure out what this would be. But I also told them that I'm dedicating my life to this work, right? Of social impact, of economic justice, right? And then they took me seriously, and then that's what made it a little bit easier for me because I had the backing of my community.
You had 2 young ones, but then you had the burning desire to really put your energy into this mission. So kinda taking a leap of faith, what are some things you wish you'd have done from a wealth perspective
Yeah.
then, based upon what you know now?
But what's interesting is that my risk tolerance back in the days compared to now, right? With wisdom, right? But I wouldn't have really changed the thing because I think, like, especially at that time, I had the energy, I had the excitement. Denzel Washington said this when he was younger, he thought he knew everything. And when he got older, he realizes that he knows nothing at all, right? What gave me the reassurance was really the fact that I know my market value. And I also know why I'm doing this. And I also know that I don't have to do this, which is good for me to know because I know that, oh, wow, like there's so much that I can contribute to the world to build someone else's vision or corporation, etc. In which I've been offered like CEO roles and, for different corporations and organizations, etc. In which those are good for me to just serve as a reminder that, oh, like I'm doing this because I am called to do this work, right? So in the days where it's tough and it's challenging, I just yield to the fact that like God has called me to do this type of work. And then when he calls me to do something else, then I'll follow.
Let's fast forward to now. We have the shakeup of the current administration and a lot of things being peeled back. Has that impacted you at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we lost millions of dollars this year. I think this year was really challenging for me, for Gentleman's Factory, for a lot of different Black brands. But it is also an opportunity for us to come together to say, hey, you know what? Like, if yes, we need corporate sponsorships and yes, we need, different revenue streams. But like what the biggest revenue driver is revenue and it's us, right? So if individuals have like a concerted effort to, purchase and procure Black businesses, then we wouldn't necessarily be saying, oh my God, like, this corporation is not giving us that $500,000 marketing deal. Or, be like, okay, you know what, like, that sucks. But, oh, like, we have a community that is like, supporting and purchasing our products and services, right? So that's how I look at it, where it's like, yes, it was hard for Gentleman's Factory for sure, and for so many of the different Black brands. But this is a time for us to really reconfigure how we do business. And if we should allow some of these brands to do business with us in the future.
What are some of the key things you think about before deciding to turn the ship, right? Because you're the leader, you have the North Star, you know where you're trying to go,
For sure.
but you got to turn the ship. But how do you know how to turn that ship and how to know that's the right path at that time?
But it always goes back to the North Star. So when I was saying before, it's like, where are you going? Organizational practices is where the pivot is. Because I've seen Black men get uninsured through in not getting quality health insurance, right? I've seen mass incarceration and how that looks like. I do this because I understand and see the plight of this community that I care so much and so deeply about, right? And as I look at what is actually going on and what resources and services are being supplied to this specific segment of the population, it is essentially non-existent. So if I then now shift all of that so that I could get revenue, then let me go to Wall Street, right? Let me then do something else, right? But it's like, this is why I do this. And then if now the market isn't viable enough for that, then two things, right? We're not going to shut down. I'm going to then hire someone who can take this to greater heights than I, and we'll pivot and continue to, see what organizational practices that needs to be done so that Black men specifically, get access to quality health insurance, right? Get mental health support and services. So I'm not like a Debbie Downer, but I am someone that is super optimistic about the opportunity that's being presented if we really focus specifically on the segment of the population that's been so neglected for years or generations or centuries.
When you look at what you've built up until this point for the last 9 years, what does legacy mean to you now?
I think legacy means to me that you just make the world better than how it was when you got here. And that could mean that you've like disrupted everything and you literally changed society. Or that means that you changed your neighborhood or you changed an organization. But it's like, how are you impacting others? Right. So for me, because I'm super ambitious and I'm just like super goal orientated, right? But like the way that legacy like means to me is like, one, I have two children, right? I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old who I love so dearly. So I want to ensure that they are loved, that they're cared for, that they have a father that they see on podcasts and on television and on the news and all of that stuff. But then they also see me at their basketball games or at their dance recitals, right? Because I think that, they are my legacy, and then I want them to be healthy. I want them to be smart. I want them to be financially astute, right? All of those things. And from a community standpoint, I want Black men throughout Earth to just know that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're loved, that they're cared for, that they're healthy, that honestly, that this world is theirs too. So if my legacy is, like having a segment of the population understand, like awakening a segment of the population and having them understand that this world is theirs too, then I'll be happy to know that, I've done my mark on this earth.
The last question that I have for you for today is if you can speak to the young Jeff growing up in Coney Island,
Mm.
what would you tell him?
I would tell the young Jeff growing up in Coney Island that, oh wow, that's a really good question. I think I would tell the young Jeff growing up in Coney Island that there are so many different stages to life. So Jeff in Coney Island is not Jeff today. Really embrace your intellect, right? Because Jeff in Coney Island was someone who shied away from being smart, shied away from reading books, shied away from curiosity, shied away from really just like reading and be looking to be successful. But that Jeff from Coney Island had to do that because Coney Island at that time was a really dangerous community. So that young Jeff was looking to survive, and his survival tactic was like suppressing his intellect. And thankfully, through community and through friends that I've had that didn't suppress their intellect, I then was able to then feel comfortable really, shining light on that side of me. And then that's how I was able to blossom. So thankfully, I found my way, like, in college, because I went to college, right? You know what I mean? But I think that young Jeff, had he really tapped into that side of his brain as while the 13, 14, 15, then I would have been like, president of the United States by now, something like that. No, no, no.
No, no. Hey, listen. Hey, we it's called the Visionary Network Show. So we gotta have the vision, like you said, find the North Star.
Yeah.
So Jeff, this is an amazing conversation, brother. Thanks for coming up from Brooklyn to Harlem.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, and let's continue to work it and build together.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. Sir, I appreciate it, man.